And as Commander-in-Chief, I have determined that it is in our vital national interest to send an additional 30,000 U.S. troops to Afghanistan. After 18 months, our troops will begin to come home. These are the resources that we need to seize the initiative while building the Afghan capacity that can allow for a responsible transition of our forces out of Afghanistan. I do not make this decision lightly. I opposed the war in Iraq precisely because I believe that we must exercise restraint in the use of military force and always consider the long-term consequences of our actions. So no, I do not make this decision lightly. I make this decision because I am convinced that our security is at stake in Afghanistan and Pakistan. This is the epicenter of violent extremism practiced by Al-Qaeda. It is from here that we were attacked on 9/11, and it is from here that new attacks are being plotted as I speak. This is no idle danger, no hypothetical threat. In the last few months alone, we have apprehended extremists within our borders who were sent here from the border region of Afghanistan and Pakistan to commit new acts of terror. And this danger will only grow if the region slides backwards, and Al-Qaeda can operate with impunity. We must keep the pressure on Al-Qaeda, and to do that, we must increase the stability and capacity of our partners in the region.
Disappointing. I would love to be able to say that things really are changing dramatically in the right direction. I look at Afghanistan as the most immediate example, and his decision to, he isn't pulling the troops out. The comparisons to Vietnam, which everyone comments upon, the sense of American government's role, perspective of seeing ourselves as being the good guys doing the right thing, and yet not really addressing, acknowledging the complexity of the impact that we're having in these other places we choose to engage in around the world. The notion that democracy is the best form of government for all people, regardless of their culture, of their history, and is it really truly? I heard Obama a few days ago on the newspaper. I think this was in China, and he is aware of that idea that the United States is importing, if not imposing, democracy around the world. But then he backs up, and this would be fitting in with Noam Chomsky's idea about innate intelligence, innate behaviors, that it is a universal value that everyone should have these particular freedoms. And yet, having studied world history, I often wonder if democracy really is the best thing in all situations. And I know that's a very radical thing to say. But the form of democracy that we have here in the United States, if you were to talk to someone in political science, isn't truly a democracy anyway, when you look at the individual and how the individual's choices are filtered through before they finally get to the top. They really have been minimized dramatically, particularly how we choose the president, but that's a different story.
General McChrystal was saying in Afghanistan that they're really trying to act more in that sense of Buddhism by treating people better and hopefully getting a better response. At the same time, we're, I guess, going to be sending 30,000 more troops into Afghanistan. Do you think that these policies are sort of contradicting each other?
I think, first of all, Afghanistan is a no-win situation. There is a recognition, a doctrine within the military now that recognizes that you can't win a counterinsurgency without, in a normal, just as you have troops on the ground, you have to have people on the ground helping those you are trying to, quote, save or protect, or whatever your language may be. But it is an inherently contradictory situation when you have a war, you're trying to win over the population, and you're sending more troops. It's kind of a no-win situation. there's an argument that this is one of the reasons bin Laden got away when the Americans had him surrounded in Tora Bora, because they didn't want to send in more and more troops and turn the population against them. Well, in that case, it acted against them. They lost bin Laden. And in the macro sense, it very often works against you, because no matter how open-minded the troops may be, no matter how goodwill they may be in the beginning, at the end of the day, they're in a hostile situation. And when you're in a hostile situation and people are shooting at you, you tend not to treat people very nicely. And that tends to create more and more anger.
History is dictated or written down by those who win. Even in this country, for example, the best example of that was the Sons of Liberty was a terrorist group that operated in America during the American Revolution, and they terrorized the British leaders and others greatly during those years. That group today would be known as a terrorist organization, except that America won the war. So we call them patriots. The British today would still probably think of them as being terrorists.
Today's current blowback, Islamic terrorism, who's responsible for that? Well, Ronald Reagan, substantially. Reagan and his administration organized the most radical Islamist fanatics they could find anywhere in the world, brought them to Afghanistan, supported Zia-ul-Haq, the vicious dictator of Pakistan, who was radically Islamizing the country with Saudi assistance. Reagan loved him. You know, they pretended he wasn't developing nuclear weapons, which of course he was. They poured support into this, not in order to liberate Afghanistan. That wasn't the goal, and it was explicit. The goal was, as the CIA station chief put it, to kill Russians. Okay, they killed a lot of Russians, and they created what we now see in front of us. And the same thing happens every time Obama orders a drone attack. Yeah, it creates more Taliban.
Well, it makes a lot of sense.
How would you react if an invisible source dropped a missile in your neighborhood trying to kill somebody they say they don't like, but it happened to kill a bunch of other people, like your friends and family? You know, okay, that's what we're doing daily.